My water bottle topper broke. I've been complaining all season 18 that I feel like it was really badly built, and I stick to those critiques 10 toes down. So I'm gonna share today exactly how I think the season should have been built. Because it exists, it feels like very little effort was put into season 18. It came across like they were ready for it to be over, like they just didn't put a lot of thought into everything. And so this video is going to mitigate that, or attempt to. Hi, hello everyone, my name is Jer, and I have always believed that Mothman exists. I will not be rejudging this at all because some people have still not learned how to act right in my comments. And I don't like punishing the whole for one or two people being a problem, but the hammer's gotta come down at some point. I'm gonna be reordering a lot of these challenges because I just didn't like the way that they flowed. So we're gonna start out episode 1, I'm gonna call it the Get to Know You Ball. We're gonna axe the whole Let There Be Light thing because I think the spotlight on these queens coming in the room was homophobic. This is the challenge where they'll exchange their suitcases, the fabrics that they brought for the design challenge. I think this is a good opportunity for everyone to get to understand each other's POV, their style, and also figure out a way to infuse their own branding. I assume it was put later in the season because we had already established a relationship with these queens, so we got a good sense of who they are and what their fashion was like, so they got to apply that later. But I really didn't like the scrap material concept as the opener. It was like they were trying to get a whiff of the unconventional material challenge, but didn't want to commit 100% to it. It's sort of like seeing someone on Grindr that you are interested in, but you don't necessarily want to commit to a full encounter, so you just flirt until you both decide that you're bored with each other. That's what that whole challenge was like to me. And I think with the drama of Sierra bringing scrap fabrics, that conversation between her and Jane would be really fun to see episode 1. And then you could also see these conversations of queens like Athena talking about the fabrics that she brought, the 12 yards of non-stretch zebra. There are some great storytelling opportunities, and I think it would lead to a lot of hilarity with all of the pieces that were brought to Drag Race. And honestly, I feel like it would have been a very similar top 2 as the original episode 1. Episode 2, unfortunately, is RDR Returns. As much as I don't like this challenge, I understand what it serves as a piece of improv. I think that it had a lot of potential to be really good, but the skits were just a little too similar to each other, so I probably would rewrite all of them, and this of course would have been the very first elimination episode. Episode 3, I would shuffle in Fanny the Hard Knock Rusical. I really liked it where it was in the season, but I also felt like it was small. Not that I'm trying to size shame or anything. I don't mind small. But there were so many backup dancers to fill up the stage. It was as if they didn't have enough roles to flesh out the production. So I would pad out the roles and add to some of those parts where there was only one person, like Jane performed on her own, but everybody else got to be in a duo, or in Athena's case, a trio. And I'm gonna say it now, Mikey and Darlene should have double won that challenge. Episode 4 would be red carpet mashups because I loved that idea. It was such a modern, fresh take on the design challenge, bringing in references that are very clear, that just about everybody knows, that we've probably seen from all of these different red carpet events. Give the queens great materials to work with, pair them up, but I absolutely would not have put it in a high-low because I don't like the who wore it better. This would be you either pass or you fail in duos. The top 3 pairings will be critiqued and the bottom 3 pairings will be critiqued. One pairing will win, one pairing will lose. That I think was the most fair way to do this because there were some groups that I think could have dual won. Episode 5 is the Snatch Game Rate a Queen. I was a fan of putting Rate a Queen later in the season. It perpetuated drama, it created some tension, it played on the social game, they had gotten to know each other a little bit better, and so we got to see those dynamics crop up, especially with the way that Athena was playing her game. And the Dion Dynasty was such a major story arc from episode 1, and it kind of fizzled out right after the talent show. I also do not enjoy a talent show on the mainline series. I want that reserved for All-Stars and All-Stars only. In my Runiverse, the international seasons always snatch up those talent shows so they can have them. But in the US mainline seasons, I just don't want to see the talent shows. And because the Snatch Game was already broken up into groups of 2, Group 1 will rate a queen Group 2 and Group 2 will rate a queen Group 1. And honestly, this mitigates a lot of the problems that I think exist because Ru is just not a good host for the Snatch Game. She just is not on top of the references and doesn't laugh at things that sometimes are funny. It's her outdated references that cause the queens to second guess their characters, to create something like Greta Feta Onassis, because they feel like whatever they're going to do is not going to impress her. Rue is not like the international hosts where they're just down to clown with whatever the girls want to toss at them as long as they're good at it. Rue needs things to be specific, and that's not always very helpful when you're trying to improv. Now, I did agree that all the bottoms were correct. I just don't know if Nene was the winner of that Snatch Game. Episode 6 would be Drag Queens for a Change. I did like that this was a political challenge episode. I wish that the show had gone a little bit deeper into the importance of voting, considering that this is such an important election year. With the midterms coming up, we have to be super loud with our voices and with our activism and with our voting powers and not let all of our rights get steamrolled by a lunatic. And so I think they should have built in a little more seriousness into the workroom conversations, into the main stage conversations, and been a little less like, things got a little heavy, let's have a dance break. Episode 7 is the roast challenge. I don't horribly mind that it was Alyssa, but I think it would have been really fun if they had done a Vegas live roast. Bring in Latrice and Derek Barry and Coco Montrese, and then they could promote the Vegas show and have some really great content to generate. I think Alyssa is a good roastee. She can laugh at herself, she doesn't take herself seriously, and therefore she won't be offended at anything and will be able to laugh along with them. I just don't know if there's enough material to create about Alyssa. And it would be a slightly bigger roast, but I don't think that's a problem because the one that we had this year was slightly unfunny. I think it would have behooved production to have a couple more queens in there who may have created some better jokes. Episode 8 is a lip sync smackdown, and we're gonna do it Canada's Drag Race Season 4 style, where all the queens will be paired off in a song of their choice. The pairings will lip sync, and whoever the top 2 are will get to save someone from the bottom. This will create a bottom 3 scenario, so whatever the lip sync is, we'll have to accommodate 3 queens. Episode 9 will be yet another rusical, but this will be Britney, the unauthorized rusical, in the same style that they've done Cher and Madonna. I think it would be very fun considering that there is a Britney Jukebox musical that is coming out very soon. Britney, I think, sold all of her discography very recently, so they're all open to be licensed. This would be a great time to have the toxic lip sync, and I think the Britney Rusical would be a reference that the median age of this cast would be able to connect to. Almost every queer person in their 30s was obsessed with Britney Spears, and so I think they would put a lot more effort into being fantastic. I hope that we'll get it someday, but it would have been nice with the literal millennial cast. Episode 10 is the You Can't Keep a Good Drag Queen Down challenge, where they'll be taking all of the scrap material from the very first challenge as well as from the duo challenge. It'll all be in a big pile, all the remnants that they didn't use, and it will all be there for them to use, plus a couple supplemental materials that they can provide. Maybe this is where they can throw in all of that crap like the sponges that they threw into that original You Can't Keep a Good Drag Queen Down challenge. Throw in a few unconventional materials with all the scrap. This would be a good point in the competition to do that because it would actually accomplish what they were saying, the renew, reuse, recycle, whatever line that was in episode 1, because they were not recycling materials. They had to probably go out and buy all those. There's no way that they had been holding on to materials for years to dump into a room. This would be actual scrap materials that they've had laying around for that season. And I think it would have made a little more sense structurally here. Give them the crap later. Let them show a more focused point of view with their design, with something that's challenging. Episode 11 would be the makeover challenge. I loved this cowboy rodeo rancher makeover that they got. I wish the judging was better, but in a rude judge season, that will simply never happen. Episode 12 will be inspired by season 8. I remember specifically saying that because they brought in Bob and Kim Chi for the cold open of episode 1, it would have been really cool if they had been able to do some type of homage to season 8, since in season 17, they did the Ugliest Dress Ever runway, an homage and tribute to season 7. So let's do something for season 8 this year. It would have been cool to see a noir ball. There are a lot of fun categories that they could play off of, but the final look would be a black and white all over makeup look. And then episode 13 would be a reunion in the style of everything prior to season 16. The sit down with RuPaul, discuss and hash out all the drama. I like the She Done Already Done had hers as lip sync smackdown, and I think that that served its purpose for a while. But we need to start making the lip sync smackdown compulsory in the middle of the season when a couple of the filler queens are gone. And I don't mean that in a completely negative way, but some queens that get cast on Drag Race are cast to go home early for a reason, or they just don't have the performance skills. And so them coming back to do a lip sync smackdown is sort of just like a victory lap for the front runners. It's where the very obvious queens like Juicy and Mia are going to thrive because they already were the lip sync divas of their season, or the Morphine from last year. It doesn't really highlight a lot of the specialties of some of the early outs, and they're gonna get dust even if they do well anyways. So I'd rather just see a full proper reunion. And then episode 14, we're gonna cut the season a little short, make that the finale. The top 4 queens will do their individual numbers, and then they'll be ranked from 1 to 4. That ranking will determine how they're going to lip sync for the crown. So Ru's top 2 will lip sync against each other, and Ru's bottom 2 will lip sync against each other. The winners of both those lip syncs will lip sync for the crown. The order of some of the original challenges did not reflect a lot of forethought in where the season was going. It was sort of just, well, we could do this kind of challenge and we can do that one, so wherever they fall, they fall. I didn't enjoy the 80s girl group challenge. I think it was a little dated and it could have been just cut entirely since they didn't put a lot of effort into it at all, or the runway that night. And again, I think the talent show should be reserved only for all-stars. I think taking the power out of Ru's hands to judge the Snatch Game might make it a little more fair, or at the very least, maybe it'll make us appreciate what Ru does if the queens had bad judgment. Maybe it would highlight for the show that Ru is not a good host in that challenge anymore. That the queens honestly know a little better than she does on what's funny and what's not. There were some wonderful challenges this season, like the scrap material idea, but it just could have been slotted later on to actively use whatever materials had come before. And allowing the queens to get to know each other with the pre-brought fabrics, I think would be a good way to start any early stories, any early tension that might be happening between them, allow them to get to know each other in a more realistic way. Because when you are left with maybe actual crap from someone's box, you might let your guard down a little more, and maybe more of your personality will emerge. And I think we would have seen a completely different season with this structure. Thank you all so much for watching this restructuring video. Let me know what challenges in the comments below that you would have liked to have seen this season, and what you would have cut from season 18. I will be chatting about the finale very soon. Keep an eye out for that, and I will see y'all on the flip.